if you if you view capitalism or business as being a form of stewardship, you think about society. I mean, society's capital is so critically important to how the society evolves, and the decisions being made by the people who control society's capital are so critical to how our society evolves. I mean, how our society evolves at a sociological level, as well as at a economic level, as well as at a technological level. I
Yeah.
really, the sociological side of that is really important. In other words, what are the behavioral attributes that get promoted by way of example via corporate America, which is most of America in terms of work, right? I mean, how many people work for a company versus don't work for a company in America? I don't know those numbers, but it's got to be the majority. So that's a huge cultural thing, kind of, like a super tanker moving through the water, having an effect. And what are the values of the people who are managing that? It's just so critically important, and particularly in America right now, because we've had a 20-year period, 30-year period where the values of the people managing so much that capital have been downright sociopathic. I mean, worse than zero. These were not people without values. These were people who affirmatively, knowingly chose to accept very bad outcomes, socially very bad outcomes, knew it was happening. So it's the equivalent of tobacco companies, or take tobacco companies. I grew up in North Carolina much of my life, and the tobacco companies have been key economic drivers, and they were around, they were around places I lived, maybe a tobacco plant or something, or people working for these companies. And of course, going to school like UNC, you would meet people whose families had been in the tobacco industry. I wouldn't speak to them. I just thought, how could you do that? My parents had some friends that were in the tobacco business, and I thought, anyway, don't get me started, but I just thought, you have a product that's killing people, it's destroying part of society, and you're doing it because you're making money? Let's have a conversation about this. So I wasn't very popular at the average cocktail party, I guess. But anyway, so now I'll take that forward. It's worse now. It's worse. And so we allowed that to happen. We, meaning America. You have a group of people who are devoid of values other than making money and pursuing their technology, whatever their technology is, their math or whatever. How could we have allowed that to happen? It just drives me crazy. So what's going to fight? What will defeat that? It can't be some regulatory regimen. The regulators are always kind of running along behind that train. It's the concept of character. That character really does matter. So I was deeply taken, deeply moved, deeply, supportive or impressed by what you were talking about, the work you did early on when you were part of, you and Joe Ritchie were, the people. I'm not saying nobody else ever thought of it, but I'm saying, you guys were building out the infrastructure to do this, the intellectual or analytical infrastructure to do this, to figure out, how do you measure character, and what's the effect of character, and what is the correlation to returns? And it just makes good intuitive sense that businesses that had good character would perform better. I'm not saying all the time, like if somebody came out with some destructive widget or something, you can make a lot of money for a while. But over a long period of time, it seems to me that character will prevail. So these are the reasons that I was so supportive. I think the social impact that you can have is enormous.